Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all of the things. Today I am going to be talking about one of the most common questions that I get asked the most when people see me out. And that would be, how did I get into trucking? They're interested in becoming a trucker, and so it's going to be like a story time. And on this channel, there's going to be a lot of stories that I'm going to be talking about, things that I've been through, experiences on several different subjects. And you guys are welcome to comment. We can agree to disagree. You know, there's always something to learn from someone else's perspective. I'm not always right, and I'm not always wrong, but we always have an opinion, right? Okay, so this will be a three-part series. The first part, I will be talking about how I got into trucking. The second part, I will be talking about my experience as a woman trucker. And the third part, I will be talking about how I save money when I come out to work. You guys, I would recommend you guys subscribe, because I am going to be keeping up with this, and hopefully you guys will be interested in these topics and you guys can participate. So how did I get into trucking? Well, it was the year 2020. Before I got into trucking, I was a paralegal. I started out in foreclosure. I did immigration law. I then moved on to criminal, and I was doing criminal law for the longest, which I enjoy. That is my passion. I still do it now. The appeal part of the whole process, where somebody will probably ask me to look into their case, do research, write motions, things of that sort. So in 2020, when the pandemic hit, and you remember everything shut down, so it also affected my job as a paralegal, because everything was shutting down. The courts were closed. They were pushing cases back. If you guys remember, it was just crazy. So the bills didn't stop coming, and even though they had all these little programs that you could sign up for and they'll help you with your bills, hell, by the time you call them, they were already out of funds. So I had to find something else that where I could generate enough income to still maintain my lifestyle. And not that it was an extra lifestyle, but I still had bills, I still had responsibilities. So someone mentioned trucking, and the first thing I was like, a trucker? No way, Jose. I am not gonna truck. I cannot truck. It's not gonna happen. No way in this way. Because you see these truckers when you're driving on the road, and you're like, no. First of all, it's so big. You want to get over. You want to get around. You want to get past. You just want to get out of the way. Like, it just looks hard, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go try it. So the first thing that I had to do was I had to go to the DMV, and I had to get my driving permit, because number one, when you go to school, you're going to have to get your driving permit for them to even allow you in the truck. So just to save yourself time, you want to go to the DMV and you want to take the driving permit. The three tests that you have to take are the general knowledge, the air brakes, and the combination test. It's okay if you don't pass on the first time, because when I first went, I didn't pass. I think I passed the first one on the first time. I'm not sure. But honey, I know I was there a lot. Okay, I had to keep going, taking those tests, but guess what? I did it. And every time, I think you can't take the next one until you pass the first one. So, it's the same thing when you go to school and you test out. You can't move on to the next until you pass the first one. So I think I'm going to give or take, say about, it took me like 4 or 5 tries. But however, I got it. And I actually went to school at a school called TDI. It was in Orlando. And so they actually had like this really, really cool program, because at the time in 2020, with the pandemic going on and everything, it was, the whole class was $6,000. And so you could go, instead of just paying the $6,000 to go to school, you could go to school if you had $200 and a good cosigner. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. So I did the $200 and the cosigner, and class started. So you get 3 weeks of class. Okay, it was the first week was all paperwork. The second week was practicing, and the third week a little bit more practicing, and then you test out. And let me tell you, it was rough because when I started truck driving school, I had also started just taking my master's degree program. So it was like, listen, I had a lot on my plate, but I was just like, I can't even tell you if I knew what I was doing, but I was just doing it anyway because I was like, hey, listen, I got bills to pay and I am going to pay these bills. So I took on this big task that I was going to get my CDL, but I wasn't going to drop out of school. So I go to the school. I already had my permit. So after the first week of doing paperwork, the professor, or not even the professor, sorry, the driving instructor, he sent the people that already didn't have their permit to go to the DMV to get the permit, because now you're going into week 2, which you have to get on the truck, practice your backing, your straight backing, and the alley dock and all the backings that they're going to teach you. And so I already had my permit, so I didn't have to do that. I just got straight in the truck. So when half the class was at the DMV, I was out there practicing. And honey, let me tell you, when you don't know, it's like the process of trying to get it is like, ooh. But persistence is always key. So you will get it eventually. You understand it, and you better make sure you get it within that first day, that second day. It's when you first start, because you don't know and you're not familiar with the truck, it doesn't make sense because it's a little bit opposite than your car because it's a bigger vehicle. So you're there, you see your trailer moving and you're turning the opposite way, trying to turn it, to swing it back the way that you want it to go, but it doesn't work that way. When you see your trailer swinging right, you got to turn right. When you see your trailer swinging left, you have to swing left, and you kind of balance it out. But I'll talk about that at a later date. So anyhow, I got into the truck and I went through all of the motions. You have to learn how to back the truck in 3 different angles. It was a very strenuous process. And then the second part, you have to learn, the first part, actually, you have to be able to identify the whole entire truck, from the outside, the inside of the hood, and you have to go through every nut, bolt, seat belt, wire. It's like they wanted you to identify everything about that truck. And if you're anything like me, what works for me is turning it into a song. So as I was going, when I was practicing, I just kept singing the parts as I was going. I made my own little tune in my head, that way I wouldn't forget, sorry. And so that's how I remembered. I mean, but to each his own, But you have 3 weeks to do all of this. And then at the same time, class was, I think it was from like 7 in the morning to like 5 in the afternoon. And then it was an hour away, so I had to run, to go do schoolwork. But they had these hotels that they put you in, and trust me, honey, if you could afford to get your own, because they ain't putting you in no Marriott. So that's for sure. So anyhow, once you get to your 3rd week and I had to test out, I was on a wing and a prayer. I had subjected myself every day for the next 3 weeks to listening to praise and worship. It was like I was just trying to pump myself up, because it's scary, when you get so far down the line and you're watching people that were there before you and they're testing out, and the look of failure on their face when they fail, So again, like when you go get your permit, when you're testing out, you only get to take each part of the test, and I think they give you a certain amount of time. You only have a certain amount of times where you could pull up. You can't talk. Everybody's out there watching you, and it's like the space that you have when you're practicing ain't the space that you have when you're testing out. So it's like you feel like you're in a can trying to do everything that they just taught you in 3 weeks, and it's just so much to cram in that little amount of time. And so I was very nervous, okay? I will say that when I tested, I am going to give it all to God because I think I had maxed out nearly all my time. I think I had like 1 minute left. I had no pull-ups left. And it, I don't even know what it was. And I just swung it in to the backing hole. It was the alley dock. One of the backing positions they want you to do is called the alley dock. And again, we'll talk about that later. And I swung it in, and when you after you finish your move, when you're done, you have to blow the horn. So I blew the horn. I didn't even know, because it was so scary, And I passed, so I went on to the next, which was the driving. That's the easiest part, because you drive probably like, I don't know, one exit off the highway, come back around, and that's it. It was just to prove that, you could do your wide turns and you don't hit anything and you're not all over the place, when you're doing your driving. So I did pass on the first shot. The good thing about the school TDI, or I don't know if any other truck driving school is like that, come the second week, they already have you filling out applications. So I already knew where I was going to work before I got my CDL. The company is just waiting for you to actually get your CDL before you can come to them, but you already have the job, so you know where you're going to go. If you don't pass the test on the first try, like when you get your permit, you have to keep on taking that part of the test before you can move on to the next. At the time at TDI, I think to retake the test, I think it was $350 from what I heard, because of course I passed on the first try. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. So when I finished school, which you have to have a certain amount of hours. So even though I finished early, I still had to go back and sit down, which I used that time to play Uno, catch up on schoolwork, things like that, because you still have to accumulate those hours even though you've already tested out and passed. And then you could go on to the company that you're going to go work for. Now, as I stated before, when I went to the school, they had the program where if you had good credit, then you could pay $200 rather than pay $6,000. And so I took the $200 route. So with that also, once you get on with the company actually takes that loan and they pay it back for you. And they'll pay back a certain amount every month as long as you stay with them and drive. But when I got into it and I started, getting my own understanding of what was going on and becoming a little bit familiar with the way that, it worked being a trucker, I went on to another company and just paid the loan off myself. So I paid my loan off in like maybe 2 months, So you go out there next, you go out there. When you get with this company, they will put you through this process first to see you're a new driver. They're going to do the same thing, overtake you out on the road. You have to prove to them, that you could drive. And per your driving with that instructor, it's going to tell you how much training you need, how many hours you need to complete. And then from there, what they'll do is they'll send you out with this trainer that you have to drive with. And you really get paid pennies. So at the time, I was getting like $600 a week. The trainer, he's getting all your miles. And the company that I started with, I think they paid 45 cents a mile. So he's really getting all your miles. But you need that training in order for you to go forward. And they want you to team. So when they have you team, they pair you with people based on your skin color, based on, I guess, if you guys live close to each other, or if it's somebody that you meet and you prefer to drive with them. They will allow you guys to drive together. But you don't want to get comfortable in that setting, because, some people like teaming, and teaming is comfortable for some people. It's not comfortable for me. I've tried it, and I highly don't recommend. I would team if it was my man, or, if you were with your wife or something, but for me to team with somebody, some random Joe that I don't know, I'm not doing it. Been there, done that. No, can't. It just doesn't work for me. And to each his own. It might work for somebody else, but it's just not my cup of tea. I would not put myself in that situation again. And that is what we're going to talk about in the second part of this story. But let me finish here and explain to you the way that it works. So they're going to put you with once they figure out how much work you need from going out with this little instructor, and you only get to drive for like 1 minute, 2 minutes, you go around the block and they're watching everything. If you turn too close, if you don't turn wide enough, if you even scratch the center line, they're writing that down. And so say after they figure out how much training you need, because you really don't have any experience. And FYI, let me put this disclaimer out there. Everything that they teach you in truck driving school, you do none of it in the real world. Once you get inside your truck, it's very seldom that you will do any of the backing that it's kind of like, once you get into the real world, you find your own way. You find your own way, what works for you. You take your time, you do what you need to do. And that's kind of like how you make it in the trucking industry. You get with a company. Everything is about you and what works for you. You can't take someone else's opinion because, oh, trust me, you're going to meet a lot of truck drivers. Oh, there's no money out here. And the market is changing and this and that. But guess what? They're still out there right with you. If it's so bad, why don't you go find something else to do? They're still out there right with you. You're going to meet a lot of people that's going to discourage you and tell you, oh, you shouldn't do this, and oh, you shouldn't do that, and oh, and oh, and oh, and oh, and oh. You got to find your own way. Like I always tell people, you can't take what someone else says and compare it to you. Some of these people driving trucks, they only have a cell phone bill. If you are a person, you have a lot of responsibility, you got to do what you got to do for you. There's a lot of gatekeepers in the trucking industry. They're only going to tell you so much to get you so far, but not enough where they feel like you're going to surpass them. You understand? So you have to find your own way. Ask questions. Be mindful of what you're doing. Be careful. It's not a competition. There's enough money out here for everyone. Whether you have big bills, whether you have small bills, whether you want to take your money and buy whatever you want to buy, or whether you want to just save it all, it's all up to you. But do not take what someone else says to discourage you, or for you to feel like, oh, well, I don't want to do this part of it anymore because I feel like I could do better. It's all up to you. But as you go, you will find your way and what works for you. Okay, so because I got carried away. So once they figure out, they're going to tell you you have to do all these hours. That's where I was. So you have to do all these hours, and however many hours they tell you. And once you finish that, well, when you're out with the trainer is supposed to be teaching you how to back. The first week, what I remember, when he drove and I sat in the driver's seat with him, and then when I drove, he sat. Well, when he drove, when he drove, I sat in the passenger seat, and then when I drove, he sat in the passenger seat. The second week, when I'm driving, he's sleeping. When he's driving, I'm sleeping. Okay? And that's another scary thing about it, because even when you do pass and you go out and you're driving with these people, how much do you really know these people? You have people that have addictions. You have people that they don't understand when they're not when they're tired, they don't even want to pull over. They will drive your ass over a cliff. You understand? So it's like, how much do you really know these people? You're trusting your life with people that you don't really know to drive you while you're asleep. They're hitting every pothole in America. You're just flying around in the back of the truck. Well, if you're like me, I'm a heavy sleeper, honey. I could sleep through. Okay, I got some of the best sleep when I was driving. I don't know, for some reason it didn't bother me, but once you go out, your trainer's supposed to teach you how to back, how to drive, how to, and let me tell you this, okay? This is another disclaimer. When it comes to backing, a lot of people are, you're at the truck stop, people are rushing you, they're honking you, and they're like, oh, you need to hurry up. They really want to go. Take your time, okay? Do not go out there and rush to hurry up and park for anyone, to be perfect. If you don't know, take your time. If they don't like it, they could find another way around. Okay? But they have to wait. But, as a woman, or even as a man, a lot of times, truckers will come out and they'll try to help you do this and that, or, whatever and the other. But, but this is what your trainer is supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be giving you the layout of how your setup is supposed to be when you start your backing, you're driving, for you to be alert. And the number one rule is, when you're tired, when you're fatigued, let me tell you something. F that load. You pull over and you get you some rest. Because let me tell you something. And like I tell everybody, do not kill yourself behind truck driving, because if something happens to you, they will replace you in a heartbeat. They won't even send flowers to your funeral. Okay? Park, get some sleep. They can always reschedule the load. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to be human. And if that company doesn't understand that, if your dispatcher doesn't understand that, well, you need to find another job. Okay? Because a lot of times they're like, no forced dispatch. It's always forced dispatch. Okay? It's always forced dispatch. You're going to meet the people out there that say, oh, a lot of truckers do it. It's easy to do. They don't drive trucks. You know? They want you to squeeze into these little tunnels, and it's like, you don't drive. If you drove, then you do it. You do it. You know, because that's another thing. You always have to remember what happens out there when you're behind the wheel. When you're logged on your clock, you are responsible. You can't say, oh, well, he said I could fit. You have to know. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of shippers and receivers don't know the difference between a day cab and a tractor with a sleeper berth. Okay? The day cab doesn't even have a sleeper berth, so it's shorter. And they want you to squeeze into these little spaces, and you're over here like about to run over a cliff. The front of your truck is hanging over a cliff just so your trailer could be straight, so they could take the thing. No, baby. You better go get you a forklift. That's how I am. You know, but you learn as you go. So anyways, again, I keep getting off topic. But so your trainer is supposed to be teaching you, like, you know, the basics, preparing you, your setup, you driving, all of the things, making you understand your clock, how it works. And we will talk about how it is as a woman in the trucking industry, because trust me, it's nothing like a man. Okay, men, it's a male dominated industry, so you will see that men have more seniority. They are respected more. And then I think it's a lot about how you carry yourself in the industry. So we'll talk about that in the next video. But your trainer is supposed to be teaching you all of these things. And it's for you to tell them if you don't understand. If you don't understand, that's fine, you know, because once those hours that they told you you have to do is up, you're going to go back to the company and you're going to have to test out. When I was in school, it was something called PDP. I don't even know what it stands for, but it was something called PDP. And so they have like this whole course, and they rig it up like it's like situations on the road that you might possibly be in, like tunnels and backing at a different angle and just driving. And so you have to get in the truck in front of everybody, and you have to, you know, go through all these mazes and all these obstacles. And the thing is, if you can't do it after you've done all your hours, everybody's gonna be looking like, well, what were you doing out there? You know, because all those hours, and I'm not saying they give you hours like, okay, well, you have to do 50 hours. No. When they give you hours, baby, they want you to do, you got to do 3,000 hours. You got to do 3,000 hours, okay? And that's not 24 hours in a day. You could only drive for 11 hours. And that's if you're straight driving. Well, you can't, well, yeah, you could drive for 11 hours, and that's only straight driving. But depending on what kind of job you have, if you have drop and hook, if you have live load, you know, sometimes your clock gets sucked down. And as a matter of fact, I'll do another video on that. I'll explain the way that the clock works, okay? So that's how your hours are calculated in the time that you drive, not the time that your trainer drives. It's the time that you drive. And if you can only drive 11 hours a day, give or take whatever load you have, say that load sucks out maybe 4 hours out of your day. That means that day you only got like 7 hours. No, yeah, 7 hours if it sucks out 4 hours every day. You know, so, and I know it might seem like a lot, like, oh my God, I'm gonna be out here with the trainer forever. No, actually it goes by really, really quick, because when you're driving, it's like, when you first start, it's like you're so excited. You know, you're just full of energy, full of life. You know, you want to get your seat. You want to see what it's like when truck drivers are out there, and what is it that they're doing, and you can't wait to get your first paycheck, and you can't wait till you get to the big bucks, which you don't really get to the big bucks until you have like 2 years of experience, if you're lucky. For me, I did 4 months of teaming, maybe 5 months of teaming, and then I went out on my own. I went out on my own, and you know, you have to learn, and it's scary because you try to get as much experience as you can from your teammate through training, you know, the experiences that you go through when you're on the road, because every situation is different. Like I said, if you remember, everything that you do in truck driving school, you are not going to do it at all when you get on the road. It's totally different. So, you know, you want to get on that road and you want to get your own experiences and see exactly how things are, you know, through your own set of eyes. You want to become familiar with your truck. You know, you might see another driver do something and you want to know, can you do it? But that driver, once you're a driver, like when I'm in my truck and I'm driving, because I'm so familiar with my truck, I can look out ahead and say, well, I can't do this. I can't turn here. I can't make a U-turn here. I can't, you know, just because you might see somebody else do it, that doesn't mean that you could do it. You know, you have to be fully confident. You have to know how to maneuver your truck. You got to know how to turn wide to be able to turn back in. It's just some things, like, you know, even driving and you're on a 2-lane road and you see somebody trying to make a U-turn, like, what in the world would make you think that you could do that? What would make you think that you could do that? And they'll do it. And that'll be the end of the truck and possibly their career. They'll do it, you know? So, you know, again, you just become one with your truck and you learn the things that you can learn and the things that you can't. Do I have lip gloss? Is my lip sweating? Okay, so anyway, once you get through PDP, or you get back to the base and you have to test out to show them what you learned and all your hours of training, then you get to go out into the real world with your co-driver, whoever they match you with, or whoever you choose, or whatever the situation. If you're a girl, I highly suggest you find another woman. If you don't know anybody, or unless it's your homeboy, your cousin, or whatever, and he's a male and you feel comfortable with them, or your man, or whatever, you go with them. Okay, I've seen situations where couples will come out and they will drive together. People find love, how, you know, in training, and they will drive together. And I mean, you just do what works for you. Okay. And once you go out, you know, they give you loads. Most of the time they will start you at a percentage. No, I'm sorry, not at a percentage. They will start you per mile. So they'll give you a certain amount of money per mile that you drive, which to me works. If they're giving you anything over 70 cents a mile, that works for me, you know. But, you know, to each his own. Okay, like I said, you have to do what works for you. So over 70 cents a mile works for me. I'm trying to think. Yeah, but so at that point, you go out there and you do what you got to do. You be great. You be careful. You have to enjoy what you do. Now, do I regret getting into trucking? No. Actually, I don't regret getting into trucking because I feel like I'm stable. As far as the other side of it, I would say sometimes it get lonely. If you're not in a relationship or you don't have anything solid, it gets really lonely sometimes. And so you have to, you're always going to be on the phone talking to somebody, unless you like watching podcasts or listening to YouTube. And that's something else that you can do, unless you just have like a whole list of people that you want to talk to every day, or sometimes you just want to be in solace and you just want to think a lot. But as far as lonely, it does get lonely a lot. It's not easy being in a relationship, especially if you're an over-the-road driver, because, you know, your partner's probably going to want you home. Now, if you're a local driver, then, you know, it might be a little easy for you. Another thing that I want to touch on is when you go to school, they tell you a lot of baloney, okay? And so when you're in school, they make it seem like the moment you get out of school, you are just a high roller, you get to call all the shots. Absolutely not. When, they like to make it seem like, oh, you can just go regional. When you're starting at the bottom, baby, you are going to get the scraps, okay? Because you really don't know. These companies are taking a chance putting you in their truck for you to tear it up. And be mindful of that too, because again, you are responsible. You always want to make sure that your MVR stays clean. You want to make sure that your clearinghouse stays clean. As far as the drinking part of it, I'm not going to get into that because I don't drink, so that's neither here nor there for me. I know that some companies, let me see what I've seen. I've seen some people drive when they are resetting their clock. So when you're resetting your clock, you sit for 34 hours, okay? And so I guess they say if you're not on the clock, then you could drink. I don't drink at all, so, I don't really know too much about that part of it. But, you see what you see and you mind your business. If it doesn't concern you, you should not have anything to say about it or be involved. Okay? I am like the mute, the deaf, and the blind. I just mind my business, okay? So, that is how I got into trucking. I think that trucking is good for people that are trying to, even if it's not something that you want to do for the rest of your life, it's something that I guess it could give you like a head start, for you to make some money, save some money. Because, granted, you probably make more than probably a customer service would make, or somebody that works at McDonald's, but as they say, the more money you make, the more, so a lot of companies also, they want you to stay out for like 3 weeks, a month, go home for like 3 days, so, but when you're climbing up the ladder, you're gonna have to deal with a lot of crap before you actually get to where you want to get, and before you're actually comfortable with where you want to get. Because a lot of the companies that do pay good, they expect you to have 2 years experience or more. I have been driving for 4 years. Like I said, it didn't take me that long because I went through a sister company, and when I in 4 months I was making like 67% of the load. So when I first started, in 4 months my checks were looking like 3,000. But again, at the time, that was around pandemic time too, and that's when the money was like really, really rolling in. Sometimes the market fluctuates, it depends on what they're giving you. When you get paid per mile, it's basically how many miles you drive. So let me give you the easiest example I can. So say a company's paying you 50 cents a mile, and they give you a load where you have to drive 600 miles, and you have to drive 600 miles to deliver the load once you've picked it up. And say you have to drive 100 miles to pick it up. That's 700 miles in total. You will get, because they're going to pay you for your deadhead miles, your deadhead miles are the miles that you're driving to pick up a load. And you are, well, of course you're not loaded, but you're driving to pick up the load. So say they give you a load where you have 100 deadhead miles, and then once you pick up the load, you have 600 miles to deliver it. That's 700 miles in total. And if they're only giving you 50 cents a mile, you will be making off that load, what, 350? And then they have the other part of it where if you do lease purchase, or you could also become an owner operator, get your own truck. But if you get a percentage of the load, it's different, because some loads, if you're lucky, it's not even kind of like a way to like mathematically break it down, because it differs. So in some situations, when you're getting a percentage of the load, they might give you a load, depending if it's a priority, it might be 100 miles. And in some situations I've seen, you might get $900 just to drive 100 miles. Compare that to getting 50 cents a mile. You'd only be making $50 off that load, So when you get in, you have to kind of like find those companies that's willing to take you with little to no experience when you first start. But again, I highly recommend, especially me as a woman, doing it. I am only 5'2", and I do it. And a lot of people, they see me, they're like, oh my God, you drive trucks. And I'm like, yeah, you do too. Because there's no limit to what you can do, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether, you're 5'1" or whether you're 6'4". It doesn't matter, You do what works for you. I saw a midget one day driving a truck. And listen, I was so taken aback. I literally stood there and waited for him to get out of the truck because I just had to see with my own two eyes. Like, is this a midget driving a truck? Yes, and he was sitting on, he had like, what do they call it? The little thing that they sit on and the little foot bar to press the pedal and everything. And another thing, when you talk about truck driving, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know how to drive stick shift. You have a choice. When you go to truck driving school, yes, they do push you to drive manual. You do not have to. Okay, do not be too proud. Okay, if you want to drive automatic, you can drive an automatic. Don't let nobody tell you, oh, you got restriction on your license, you only drive. So what? I'm driving. Manual doesn't make you more of a truck driver than if you're driving automatic. You still driving. You still out there pulling a load, right? Okay, but again, like I said, you'll have these people that are so judgmental, and they will say, they try to classify you. Oh, you don't have enough experience, you're not a truck driver. Oh, you don't know how to back, you're not a truck driver. Oh, you drive automatic, you're not a truck driver. Listen, baby, we out here doing the same thing. Okay, when the market sucks for you, it sucks for me too. Okay, when the market goes up, it goes up for me too. I might not make as much as you because maybe you get paid a percentage, maybe I get paid by the mile, but we're still out here doing the same thing. And they always say, well, truck drivers aren't supposed to encourage each other. I don't be seeing that. Truck drivers be cutting you up. They are more rude than the cars that they just fly in front of you like, hello, I can't just stop my truck. It takes time. But they don't be caring. You understand what I'm saying? But anyway, because I have just left with this whole conversation. Let me get back on topic. But so I got into truck driving initially because the pandemic hit, and I felt at the time I took a chance, and I was scared. I was scared that I wasn't going to be able to survive. I felt like everything was going to crumble, and that's when I had to put on my big girl panties, and I had to say, this is what I'm going to do. It might not be the life that I would expect, because you hear the stories about, oh, well, you gotta poop in a bag, and oh, you gotta shower. Well, they have showers at the truck stop, so I recommend that you shower as much as you can every single day, and you just make it what it's supposed to be for you. That's what I highly recommend. Do not be afraid to get into truck driving because you think you can or you think you won't make it. It all comes through faith. You have faith, you believe you can, you will. And you will prosper. You always have to go into things positive. I went into it a little positive because I was a little shaky, you when you don't know. But guess what? It works itself out. And I just want to say that, how do they say, if God took you to it, he will take you through it. He took me to it, and he took me through it. And it's just an amazing journey to at least say, well, I did this, I have this under my belt. You have something else that you could fall back on if the whole world starts to crumble. You still have that, so you never want to subject yourself to one area. Try it out. If you're interested and you're curious and whatever, all the other things about truck driving, when I meet people and they're, oh, how did you? I just got up and did it. And somebody told me about it, and I just went through with it. And there were times when I wanted to give up, but I was like, oh God, I can't do this. I still kept on going. But when I first started, did I see the big picture now? Big picture? No, but look at where I am now. I didn't see it. I was like, especially when I started backing, I was like, I'm never going to be able to back this truck. You're looking at other truck drivers, they're just looking out the window, just whipping it, and you're still jumping out, measuring your arms like, okay, this truck. But you have to take a chance on you. And that's what I had to do. I had to take a chance on me. because I wanted better, and I have accomplished so much. Oh, and by the way, I did get my master's degree. Okay, I did graduate. I actually got straight A's. So that was good. 4.0 GPA. But it was a process, because learning how to drive the truck, when you stop driving, you have a 10-hour break. So within that 10 hours, you try to cram everything in. I mean, unless you don't really have to go pick up a load early in the morning, or you have to drive all day the next day, then you kind of learn how to work your schedule. But when I first started, I was just like, okay, I got this 10 hours break. So you got to try to cram in your dinner, your shower. And then I had to do like 2 or 3 hours of classwork. So I was left with whatever was left. Then you got to get up and you got to drive, but as time changed, I learned how to manage my schedule more, because, when you first start, you want to get it right. You don't want the instructor or the trainer to be disappointed and say, or report you bad and be like, oh, she's lazy, she doesn't want to drive. Like, you definitely do not want that. In the next video, I'm going to talk about my experiences as a woman. I've said that this is my 3rd time, but I'm going to talk about my experiences as a woman. So I need you to subscribe, because it is definitely story time. I am going to tell you, and everybody has had a different experience, okay? But I am just going to tell you my experience and what I went through. So anyhow, that is how I got into trucking. Again, I encourage anyone, if you want to drive trucks, you can. Do not get discouraged by naysayers. Do not get discouraged by people that have been driving for 50 years and are trying to tell you, oh no, you shouldn't drive trucks. Because I always tell them, I'm like, what's disappointing to me, and I have to say this, and to each his own. Unless you just really like to be out driving trucks, okay? You have some people that you will meet, and they will tell you, first of all, they will talk you to death. Truck drivers are so lonely, some of them. They will just meet you out of nowhere and just start talking to you, telling you about everything that happened since they were in kindergarten. And you like, I don't care. And they will follow you, because once they start the story, they have to tell you all the way to the end. They will literally follow you to hell to get that story out. And you're just there like, I don't care, trying to get away. But anyways, you will meet some truck drivers, and truck drivers will be like, they'll tell you their story. Oh, I've been driving for 25 years. And you have nothing. Some of them have been driving for 25 years. No house, no car, living in their truck, nothing, again, but a cell phone. And it's like, well, what are you driving for? To eat? Because that's basically what you do when you drive. You eat a lot. You snack a lot. You eat a lot. You drink, whatever you drink to keep. You just got to keep on going, You're not going to be pulling over every day to go get Firehouse subs and, So, again, that'll be the 3rd video I'll talk about how I save money. Because believe it or not, I actually come out with like $100, and I could stay out, if I choose to, I could stay out for like 2 months, and I'll still go home with $40. So I'm going to explain that to you. You're going to be like, what? I must be pimping. No, actually, I weigh 160 pounds, but I will explain all of it to you, how I save money. Those will be in later videos, but back to what I was saying. Do not get discouraged, because you will meet people that will act like they are just greater than, Goliath. And we're all in this doing the same thing. We might not be making the same money. We might not drive for the same company, We might not pull the same loads. We might not pull the same trailers, but we're all out here trying to make $1. We're all out here trying to survive, whether you have a cell phone or whether you have a house. Okay, whether you have a car or whether you have a boat. But you will meet people that will be very discouraging. They will be very negative. They'll tell you all the things you can't do, because they've been in the industry since, God created the earth, and they are still doing the same thing. Find your way. When you don't understand, ask questions. Ask them to the right people. Ask questions, learn, do research, ask. It never hurts to ask. The only thing a person could tell you is, no, I don't know. And then you have the gatekeepers that'll tell you a little bit. Oh, I don't know that much. Like that person that buys a pair of shoes yesterday, and you ask them, well, where you get those shoes from? And they like, I don't remember where I got it. Bro, you just got the shoes yesterday. Like, come on. You're not the only person going to have those shoes. They're not the only people that's going to drive trucks. You know, so that's something that you have to remember. And yeah, so you go in there wanting, you have to be hungry. You got to be hungry to learn. You got to be hungry to be able to take risk. And when I say take risk, I'm not talking about getting in a truck and having some speed race down the I-95 with another trucker. No, absolutely not. What I'm saying is, you can't be afraid to try different loads, or different trailers. Okay, I've tried reefer, which is the refrigerated trailer. I've tried dry van, which of course is dry. I've tried flatbed. I've tried it all, because you want to at least say that you've tried it. And also another thing, when you get your license, there are endorsements. There are a couple of endorsements. So they have the hazmat, they have the tankers, they have the triples and the doubles. I have hazmat and tankers. Okay, I have those. They kind of welcome you to other parts where you can pull different kinds of loads. When you pull drive-in, it's just dry stuff. When you pull reefer, you don't really need endorsement, because it's more like food. You know, you work for certain companies that like transport chicken, and you know, it's, I've done that. I didn't really like it because it just attracts so much flies, the blood dripping out of the truck. It's just too nasty. Then the truck washouts, and it's just time consuming. Okay, and when you do reefer, you have to actually fill your reefer as well with the truck, so it's different. You have to fill and then drive up a little bit, fill your reefer, your trailer, and then you get to drive off. So there's different, you know, avenues that you can take when you're in truck driving. You see which one generates the most money for you. You know, again, do not listen to people. Oh, well, you make more money when you do flatbed. Oh, you make more money when you do reefer. Oh, you make more money. My logic behind it is this: you make money when you're booking good loads, when you have a good dispatcher, whether you book your own loads and you get good loads and you keep on moving, you're gonna make money. If you have a crappy dispatcher and you're with a crappy company that has you sitting for days before you get another load and you're not running, you're not gonna make money. You understand what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter what you pull. It doesn't matter what you pull. You could be pulling, you know, some of these companies, they give you loads. The loads are so heavy, it sucks your gas out before you even get a third way of the destination, you know. So it's about what loads you're pulling, who is booking your loads, you know. And there's nothing wrong with pulling heavy loads if they're paying 4 times more than you know what I'm saying. So it always has to make sense, but when you get down to that part, then you'll understand. And that's more of a percentage thing, because when you're running off of miles, I guess those companies, they're going to give you whatever they're going to give you, because guess what, whether it's heavy or light, you're still going to be making the same thing. You're not responsible for the fuel, you're not responsible for anything. Whereas if you're leasing or you're an owner operator, you are responsible for your fuel, your maintenance, you're responsible for all of that. Okay, so we will pick this video up again, guys. Please subscribe, comment, however you would like to do it. Welcome to my channel again, and this is part 1. How did I get into trucking? And the next one we will be talking about my experience as a female trucker. That should be very interesting, because oh my god, it's just too much. But thank you guys, and have a good night.